it really comes down to how you approach that conversation. And if you're leading with value, I mean, something that I'd tell agents on my team is when you're cold calling, it's not your job to convince someone to sell. It's not your job to like logically tell them why. It's really you're there to provide value, provide information, and see if they're at a spot where they want to sell.
What's going on, guys? In this episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have Taylor Doolittle out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he is a realtor, investor, triathlon runner, Ironman guy. But his whole thing is learning how to balance all of the different parts of life and do so strategically and in a way so that, you know, not only are you able to be productive, but you're actually able to balance the parts of life that everyone wants, you know, your family.
Yeah, he dispels the myth that you're too busy to do things because he's running, like you said, he's training as an endurance athlete, running his own brokerage team, investing in real estate, and still taking care of his family where he has young kids or will have young kids when this episode drops. He'll have a second kid. So it's like he's got a lot going on in life, but he's still able to block out time for every aspect of that and be highly successful in each area.
Yeah. And it's, you know, he has a lot of super valuable insight about the best way to do it. He even goes into some of the general tools and tricks and stuff that he uses himself to be successful with that whole like time blocking, lifestyle setup, which is honestly something that's super challenging for most entrepreneurs, especially when you're new, you're coming from kind of like a corporate environment, learning how to be, successful just off your self-motivation is hard. Right.
And when it's challenging, I mean, I struggle with it too, because sometimes you just want to work. Yeah. And there are times when you have to work, but you got to learn, and it's a learned skill how to balance that out so that every aspect of your life you can serve each aspect of your life, each person in your life, each part of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, where a lot of people get caught up is because they typically come from an 8-hour workday environment. They feel like they need to fill up that 8 hours with something. Right. And so what they do is they take the task they could realistically do in a couple of hours, they drag it out 8 hours. And what that leads to is they're not getting as much done as they could, or they are just not having any free time to actually spend doing things they enjoy. And that's something that Taylor has really worked to overcome. And he has a lot of great insight about how to go about that for everybody else. So anyways, guys, enjoy the show with Taylor. Absolutely reach out to him after the show. He's a super nice guy, and you'll be able to pick up on his tone. Like, he's more than happy to chat with people who are sort of going through these same challenges. And if you have anyone who needs to learn to take a chill pill, needs to learn how to break up their day a little bit better so that they're more productive, have more time to not be a workaholic, this is a great episode to share with them. So please do that. And outside of that, leave us a 5-star review, helps us grow the podcast. And our growth right now is going crazy, and we want to just keep that momentum up as best we can. And by leaving us a review, that helps out a lot. So anyways, guys, enjoy the show with Taylor Doolittle. All right, guys, we are here with Taylor Doolittle. You are the real estate lifestyle balance expert, I guess. As we were chatting about before the show. Yeah. It's always interesting before the show. People tend to have a laundry list of things that they are excited about. I guess a laundry list of things they always say that they're willing to talk about. But what I always want to know is, what are people excited about? Because that's what really makes good conversations. There's nothing worse than on a podcast where you listen to like a guest where it's obviously they're like a professional guest and they've like rehearsed a bunch of stuff and you're just like, oh my God. Like, you know, they're giving a dictation. That's not our shtick at all. If you want that, go listen to Bigger Pockets or something. But Taylor, man, super excited to have you. For people that don't know who you are, give us a little bit of breakdown of your background and kind of what you're all about.
Sure. So my name's Taylor Doolittle. I live in a suburb of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So out in the western suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I love it here. Originally from North Carolina. I married a Minnesotan gal, and they call it the Minnesota boomerang. Minnesotans go out, grab someone, and then move back to the Midwest. So I've been here for about 13 years, and this is home now. I love it. I've been married for 10 years to my beautiful wife that I totally married up. And I have a 2-year-old daughter and another daughter on the way that's due here in June. So come the summer, chaos is going to crank up just a little bit, and I couldn't be Couldn't be more excited about that. I run a residential real estate team with a couple business partners. We've got 15 people on the team, helping people buy, sell, and invest in residential real estate, do some commercial as well. And then also I am a real estate investor. So I have a smaller portfolio that I'm just building over time as the right deals come along. And then I'm super passionate about health and fitness, and my most recent addiction is triathlon. So I'm training for a half Ironman in May, which will be my last big race before baby 2 gets here. And I promise my wife that I won't be training for anything until we see how life is with 2 kids.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Why half? Just go full. There's not much of a difference.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. I value my marriage too much right now to do a full Ironman. Because really doing any of these endurance sports it really comes down to, like, race day is your reward. Right. Really it comes down to, are you willing to sacrifice the things necessary to train properly for that race? Which that can, like, cross over into every area of your life. But to properly train for a race that's going to take you 12 to 15 to 17 hours on race day, that means during your peak training weeks, you're training 25 hours a week.
That's a lot.
And so what I found, go ahead, Dan.
No, finish. I want to hear this.
What I was saying is I found that the half Ironman, which is about a 5-ish hour race, is the maximum time that I can train for, to where I'm really only sacrificing my sleep and being disciplined, and I'm not bleeding over into it impacting taking away time from my wife or my daughter.
That's a great point, like, to even bring that up. But here's what I'm going to give you some training advice. Train for the half, and then get a MP3 player that has David Goggins on repeat, and then just do the other half. Just do it twice, and then you'll do a full. Yeah. And it's like, you don't know me. There you go. You might break something. Likely you'll actually probably injure yourself, but who cares?
Don't listen to Dan. Dan just, like, goes and does, like, a 25-mile mountain climb with no preparation. So he's not the right person to be taking advice from on that.
No, I listened to his recent book, and during this training for this race, and it is very motivating to listen to him yell at me while I'm getting up at 5:15 a.m. and not wanting to train. So it's great.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting guy he is an interesting guy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. There's always this fascination. I guess I have this fascination about high performers' fascinations with endurance sports. Like, I consider myself a high performer, but I'm like a meathead, right? Like, I like to go, like, lift weights and throw heavy shit and, like, do those kind of sports. I did a lot of strength sports. But there's this thing with, like, people that are in real estate, they're C-suite professionals, they're doctors, whatever. They get it really into Ironmans and triathlons and marathon running and adventure racing and whatever. I'm curious, why do you think that is, from the perspective of someone that's into those things?
Well, I think that endurance training is such a good metaphor for life. And like I just said, like, your race day is the reward, and the training aspect is the real grind. So it's really easy to see people in kind of the business world, real estate world, where they're doing really, really well, where they're like, oh my gosh, Mike and Dan, they just closed on this other thing. Like, wow, look at them. But they don't see the years and years of, like, quiet grind that you guys did to get to that point. So it really comes down to it's such a good metaphor to, like, the daily choice of consistency through discipline to train is the only way that you're going to complete that goal, which is the same for endurance racing, which is the same for business, starting a business, investing in real estate. And it really is, it comes down to, it's so much mindset. It's not whether or not your body is capable, because of course it is in most cases. It really is just, are you disciplined enough to put in the work required? Are you willing to sacrifice the things that need to be sacrificed in order to train properly to achieve the mission.
Yeah.
So same for business, same
It's like
for
cracking. It's
racing.
like you're saying, like once you've cracked the code in business, like it's an easy replication of that, because when it comes to fitness, especially endurance, you made the great point. It's literally just consistency over time and being dedicated to a goal or a mission, which to be successful in business, as you know, you just said it, you got to grind for a while, or it's overnight success, which doesn't really result in anything long-term.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I guess I would argue that's the same statement I would make for strength training and getting strong. I mean, it's the same thing. People can be like, oh, you can squat a certain amount, you can deadlift a certain amount. That still requires the same level of dedication. It's just that the training time domain is smaller. And I would say it's probably a different level of discomfort and patience that's required, because to do that properly, you have to be equally as disciplined. You have to be, more disciplined with food, I would say, even, because if you want to put on appropriate muscle mass, but it's just a different sort of stimulus.
And which is why Mike will not come to my weightlifting challenge that I've been pitching to him for years now on this podcast, and he still won't show up.
Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike.
I know. Right? What's funny? So you've never met Dan. I'm about a foot taller than Dan and about 60 pounds heavier than Dan. So
yeah, right. You're definitely at least 60 pounds heavier.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know about
what do you like? Like 155? Yeah.
Oh please. 155 soaking wet, and man, that's pound for pound. Like I said, pound for pound, I'm stronger.
Anyway, cool. No, that's cool. Let's go into your business a little bit. So, you covered a lot of things in your little intro there, but what's your main business right now? You're a realtor for the most part. You do some investments. Is that your focus, or is it your like brokerage, your focus? Where do you kind of go?
So good question. Kind of my 3 jobs that I have is helping people buy and sell real estate, leading the real estate team, and then investing in real estate. And my main day-to-day focus is my real estate, my realtor business, where I'm helping people buy and sell and invest in real estate. So I have a full-time assistant that he's just incredible. I could not do my job without him. And so between he and I will help between 75 and 100 families a year get into homes, either buying or selling or investing. So
nice. Wow. That's pretty cool. So that's your focus. And then your investment opportunities, do you source those through your brokerage, or do you do like other stuff outside of that?
Yeah, I'd say my portfolio, the way it looks right now, is I have 15 doors. So that's split between a couple duplexes, a single family rental, and a small 10-unit apartment building. And almost all of those deals have come to me from other sources. So saying like, hey, Taylor, I know you're looking, here's one that I think works. And that's how most of the opportunities that I'm underwriting to see if they even work. That's the main way that I find it, is just having colleagues and people know what I'm looking for, and then they'll send me stuff. It's just with rates right now, it's so tough. A blessing is the bank is basically like a built-in underwriter for you. So they're going to tell you if the deal works with rates. But at the same time, these deals that a year ago with rates where I'd be so pumped about the price, now they just don't even work. And so what I think is a good deal on an apartment building, the bank's like, yeah, if you could get it for $400,000 less. I'm like,
yeah,
it was already a good deal.
And then the sellers, are they just not budging, or are they finding buyers that are willing to pay that? What are you seeing?
Well, a lot of the ways that we find deals is just going direct to sellers, and a lot of sellers, at least in our market, and I'm sure it's like this in most markets, are like, well, I don't have to sell, but I would sell if I could get this.
Yeah.
And so trying to find a price that is motivating to them, because you find a 75-year-old dude that has a massive portfolio and it's all paid off.
Yep.
It's like, well, they don't have to sell it. So it's just right now really hard to find a price that's motivating to people, while at the same time works to get a loan approved on it. So it's just hard to find anything that works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always a bit to that, right? And, that's what we do. That's like our main business is off-market real estate. So when you say you're going direct to seller, what are you doing with that? And like, that's actually a good question. How do you handle doing that with your realtor in your brokerage. That's something that comes up a lot because people are worried about doing any sort of direct to seller engagement when they have a brokerage because of how it might reflect on their, the realtor brand.
As in, because they may want to negotiate a price that would be less than if you were to list it on the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like in any market, we pull lists of owners, rental property owners. In Minneapolis, that list is public data. So just calling sellers directly. And I think it really comes down to how you approach that conversation. And if you're leading with value, I mean, something that I'd tell agents on my team is when you're cold calling, it's not your job to convince someone to sell. It's not your job to logically tell them why. It's really you're there to provide value, provide information, and see if they're at a spot where they want to sell. So oftentimes when I'm calling, I'm asking the sellers hey, looking in this area, I'm just curious, are you looking to build your portfolio? So I'm asking people oftentimes, are you a buyer? And so providing them value to see where they're at. And if they're not, say, well, do you have anything that in your portfolio that you're considering selling? So just having a genuine conversation and providing the value of hey, are you looking to buy? Are you looking to sell? And so me being a realtor, I can provide all of those options in one call. So me speaking to a seller, hey, I wear a couple different hats. I'm an investor myself. So if you're looking to sell, I would consider buying it. If it doesn't work for me, I have a list of buyers that might consider buying it. But if you're not looking to do that, well, I'm coming across sellers that do want to sell, and here's 3 properties. Do any of those work? Do you want to buy those? And I've gotten really good feedback from owners saying wow, you're the first person that's called that's tried to give me something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to
prospect.
It is for sure. And ultimately you're trying to, solve a problem or provide value to people, which is where most people for some reason in real estate, a lot of people don't understand that you need to add value. If you want clients, you want to make money, whether you're a realtor, right? The top performing realtors are ones, they're not just the ones with the biggest billboards. They're the ones that, they have a strong brand, but they also provide services that are so good that they make other people refer them. If you're a wholesaler, that you're going to get the most deals if you are willing to navigate the different situations people get themselves into, whether it's a troublesome tenant, you're willing to buy with a tenant, perfect. You're going to have more deals. You're willing to help navigate liens. You're willing to help navigate title issues, divorces, whatever. And a lot of, wholesalers, realtors, all the transactional people in this business, they're all I want is someone that has their shit together that can just make it so that I get to collect a check for really nothing. And that's not how it works. Right.
Yeah. I work a lot with estate sellers, estates and probate and stuff like that, which I'm sure you guys run into a lot of that. And it really is just, I oftentimes go in and say, hey, working with us, we're going to eliminate the most stress possible from a inherently stressful process. So we've got a team to help with every aspect. And I know that this is emotionally a lot going on. So it'd be an honor to work with you through the process. So I think people love not being hard sold and felt like they're actually being helped. And I've had that's a big way that I've built my business.
Yeah. That's great. I think too, just a small nuance when you're calling these landlords, by asking the first question is, are you a buyer? You've now just doubled your opportunity to capture people. If you're just calling people hey, do you want to sell? I want to list your property. You're cutting out half the people that might actually want to buy something and then spark that relationship. And then maybe they aren't buyers right now, but then you come back around because you've created that relationship and they become sellers in a year or two. And now you've just got this lead pipeline just by flip-flopping that question. So that's why I think it's a great way to prospect. Just a small nuance.
Yeah, and 2, if you're calling duplex owners and you have a hold of maybe smaller apartment buildings, 5+ units, then helping them kind of upgrade and selling their property to 1031. There's just a lot of cool things that you can do using that strategy.
Right.
Yeah. For people that are kind of looking at a similar sort of setup to you, where they have a brokerage, they want to buy some more investments, they want to prospect a little bit. What do you think is the best place for them to start doing that?
To start prospecting?
Yeah, like kind of like how you doing? Like, you just say like, oh, just go and get a list and just start calling people. Do you have like everyone always wants to know what step one is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say for me, building my real estate business, I wanted to do everything possible that was free. So whenever you're starting a business, you have no money and nothing but time. So spend your time doing the things that get you results. And as that pendulum starts to swing and eventually you get to a point where you've got the money, but you've got no time. So then you use your money to implement systems and delegate to buy back your time. And so for me, building my real estate business, I'm not from Minnesota. I didn't go to high school here. I didn't go to college here. I don't have like a built-in network. So I just sat in open houses. I probably sat in four or five open houses every weekend for 3 years, meeting buyers and building trust with people by adding value. And then, so that's how I would prospect buyers. And then prospecting sellers is you can go get, there's a lot of lists that are public data from the town that you live in. Call up City Hall and say, hey, I know this is public data, send it to me. And then pick up your phone and start dialing. You don't have to say like, I gotta save money to buy this expensive list, or I gotta pay money to have this multi-line dialer. Those, in my opinion, are just all excuses to prevent you from taking action. So literally just, you got a cell phone? Perfect. Can you call the city? Grab a list. It's in an Excel file and just go one down the list.
Yeah. I think that's super valuable. And within this sort of space, there's so many, I want to say like productive procrastination things that people do because they don't want to do the hard part, which is actually talking to sellers. You know, the word they're going to get cussed out, they're going to be told no, whatever. But like people get so caught up, like you said, trying to get like the perfect list. People will go driving for dollars. And thing is, you know, there's other real estate folks that'll like be a proponent of that. It's like, oh, you want to, you know, find free leads, just go drive around your neighborhood and then find like the shitty house. No, that doesn't work anymore. Not when there's so much recorded data out there. You know, or like they're like, I need to spend time building the perfect cold calling script, or like downloading 25 different cold calling scripts and rehearsing them so I know which one's good. Just start talking to people, treat them like human beings, you know, and that's ultimately where deals can start to come from.
Yeah, and it's really easy for people to say, well, everyone's calling this list. Well, yeah, I own property in my city, so I get those calls, seeing if people, and 99% of the people calling you are really bad at it.
Yes.
And so I always answer and see how people do. So if you can lead with value and have genuine conversations with people, that really can open up doors. So just have a good conversation, pick up the phone and be genuine. And that's the best weapon you can have.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really bad at it and they're not consistent, you know, and that's why people don't get results. No follow up. They don't have a sales process. I mean, like people ask us all the time, our main marketing process is mail, direct mail. And we're in, at time of this recording, active in like 15 markets, you know, doing like prospecting for leads. And people all the time are like, well, what makes you different from everybody else that's in the markets that you're in that you're able to get results? I'm like, consistency, like nothing else. We pull the same list everyone does. You can go watch a YouTube video. You can see how to do that. We send pretty general mail. It's not like we have some like super fancy thing that we're sending, but we have a professionally looking brand behind it, and we do it consistently over a long period of time. And that's literally all that it takes. You know, there isn't some crazy formula to get deals. But most people, they spend too much time sort of like seeking the, you know, secret sauce, and then they miss out on doing anything.
They try to they need a logo or they need this or that. And it's like, you don't need any of that before you start. And in fact, I don't know if we've had much of anything. Like when we started this podcast, I don't know if we had it wasn't Collecting Keys wasn't the name. Let's put it that way.
It took us to like episode 5 to get to that.
Right. And like, we didn't have a intro. We didn't have anything right to start this podcast. We just started recording and posting it because we knew like massive imperfect action is going to get us to where we want to go. And the same thing goes for anything you're doing out there to try to find people. Like Mike and I have just figured out, just get off your butt and do it. And you're saying the exact same thing, Taylor. It's just like, get off your butt and do it, and do it consistently, do it often.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many excuses to not take action in every area of life. And really, it's those that get up and just start moving. I like the idea of God can't steer a parked car. So you just got to be moving and then you'll be
Yeah.
directed.
Right.
That's perfect segue to segue. Is that the right word? Yeah. That's not what's the
Yes,
thing.
but
that
it's
you
not
drive?
spelled Segway. That's a scooter. That's a different Segway.
I have this habit of saying words that are like kind of close, and afterwards my wife will be like, "That's not a real word." I'm like, "God damn it!" Now everyone's gonna
Or
hear
it's
it.
like kind of like just an adaptation of a word in a different sentence. But we get what you're saying.
Yeah. So one of the number one objections people get about prospecting and other sort of things is time related, kind of like you mentioned, right? And for most people, that's revolving around family, personal life, work life balance, whatever. I know this is something you're very passionate about, Taylor. So
And here,
I'd
and
love
let
to
me
dive
add to
into
this
that.
too, because
Yeah.
Mike and I talked to a lot of people that are like, I would love to do that. Just, I've got so much going on in life right now. It's like, but you've taken step one, like you know what to do, like, but then you've got too much going on in life and you're not willing to sacrifice or shift or balance. And I think this is a great conversation around how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to actually getting clear on what do you actually want and why do you want it. Because I think for those people that say, well, yeah, I just got so much going on, I just truly don't believe that they want what they say that they want because they're not prioritizing it enough. And I guarantee you, if you did the practice of sitting down and for an entire week journaling, this is what I'm doing with every minute of my day, you'll get to the end of the week and just like, holy cow, 85% of this, 90% of this was totally a waste of time and it didn't move the needle forward in any way possible.
Mhm.
So I think really it comes down to, we've talked about consistency and just taking action, but it really comes down to discipline and just really getting clear on, why is this my goal? What is my purpose? What is my why? And then just taking a really honest look at yourself and just being disciplined, sacrificing the things that are necessary to sacrifice in order to achieve those goals if they're truly important to you. So now, go ahead, Dan.
I was gonna say, what the great thing is about that comment, what you just outlined there. So we were started working with a business coach at the beginning of this year, and that was actually the first thing he had us do. Was he had us go and document every 15 minutes of every day for 2 weeks. And I guarantee you said that, and everyone who's listening to this that has not accomplishing anything, I guarantee you their first thought was, well, I don't have time for that.
I don't have time for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Realistically, it takes like 10 minutes for a day, but they're like, oh, I can never do that. I don't have time. It's like, well, there's your problem.
And you find so much in doing those time assessments. Like, you might actually be busy, but you're busy doing stupid stuff. I think for the average person, you find, like, if you actually were honest with yourself, you find stuff that you did not have to do. Like social media 12 times a day for 15 minutes, which is probably not uncommon for the average person.
Yeah, probably not at all.
Would it be helpful if I just ran you through how I categorize those things and something that might be helpful? So I did high performance coaching with Trevor McGregor. Are you guys familiar with Trevor?
Is that Connor's brother?
I don't know. I don't want to fight him. Trevor's the man. He's a high performance business coach, and he really helped me get clear on kind of my schedule and my timing and things like this. And so the exercise that I did was, one, go through and catalog everything that you're doing, and then you need to assign a color to that particular task. So the lowest value color is brown. So that task is brown time. It's a waste of time. It's just crap time, right?
It's poop.
Things that you probably shouldn't be doing. It's just poop. And then right above that is light green time. So light green time is kind of low income producing activities. So things that do actually need to get done, but it's not the highest and best use of your time. Then you draw a line. And then once we go above the line, the next one is dark green time. So that is the high income producing activities. So that's prospecting, talking to sellers in regards to real estate. It's like, what are the things that are actively earning you income? And then above that is gold time. And gold time is that invaluable time. So it's like date night with wife, time with kids, time with family, taking care of your health, going to church, like those types of things that are invaluable. So once you go through the practice of cataloging your time, assign a color saying, okay, is this gold time? Is this dark green, light green, or brown time? And then you need to make sure that more than half of your time during the week is playing above that line, doing the dark green and the gold time. Mm-hmm. And so then what I would do as kind of next steps to that practice is just give a go at time blocking. And we've all probably heard that story of the professor stands at the front of the room and he puts big rocks in a jar and he says, how full is the jar? And everyone says, it's full. Then he puts smaller rocks in and it fills up. How full is it? Right. And then he puts sand in, then he puts water in. Right. And so really going throughout your week and blocking out, most importantly, time for the gold activities. So time with your family, time for your health. And then putting in those dark green activities. So maybe it is just, I'm going to call 10 owners. That's not going to take very long. Like just start the habit. And then block time for the gold time and the dark green time, and then just fill in the rest of the time with light green and delegate as much as you can to whether it's to a person or to a system or to a software, and then cut out as much brown time as you possibly can.
Yeah. Great. I love it. I mean, like it's so simple. And I like how you just said like, well, I'm just going to call 10 people today. Right. Mm-hmm. Like that's like build that habit. I use the habit tracker for certain things just because there's some gratification, I think, in writing it down. And like this, it's funny. I use the habit tracker for like the small things, like for the big things, like the big rocks. I know I have to do those and those are like going to get done. But for these little things that build into big rocks, are super important. You know, like I just around fitness, I have a goal of like how many days I want to be in the gym and a few other fitness goals that will build up to the big rock, which is like a shift in body composition. Same thing for business, right? There's tons of stuff you can do in there. And that is just so valuable. And people, I think, overlook writing something down, right? Mm-hmm. And saying you're going to do it, honestly, and checking that box.
Yeah. I think it's a big comment there. And also too, a thing with this where I think a lot of people get stuck is doing that time blocking when you're already in like a hectic space and you're kind of all over the place is very challenging to start. Mm-hmm. And it does require a lot of discipline. Yep. You have to understand that you're going to have to shift like your normal routine. You're going to have habits that you have to change. You know, like a big thing that a lot of people get caught up on, and I used to be really bad about this, is email. Every time they get an email, they have to respond to it right away. They feel like they need to, which I can understand the responsiveness of that. But realistically, if you have an email that comes in and you wait 3 hours to respond to it, is that going to be the end of the world? If the answer is yes, you probably need to look at your business a little bit and find out.
To be honest too, like nowadays, this is a shift that I've made. And if you're using email, that's the same in today's time as sending a letter. Like you should not expect it to come back right away. And if you do, you're using the wrong medium.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, a lot of people, especially if they come from a corporate environment, they're like, you know, in a corporate environment, your realistic job is to respond to email all the time. Like most people, they sit in the corporate office, they don't do shit all day. Yeah. They respond to email and they fill out their TPS reports.
They do 100 emails that could be done in like 12 minutes of phone time.
Exactly. But so then they become an entrepreneur and they do the same thing. But realistically, so what happens is they're like always getting distracted. But if you take that, you time block it and you're like, okay, cool. I check emails first thing in the morning, then maybe for like 15 minutes at lunch, and then at the end of the day. And that's it. All of a sudden you have now opened up like 6 hours where you can be focused on things that are a lot more focused, like a lot more intentional.
And it's not even just what you said, the word focus is important. And I'd love to hear your kind of input on this, Taylor, is like, there's the focus piece. And if you're drawing focus from a task to go and respond to a quick email, that is not just the time you're doing that, it is what you're sacrificing in the focus and how unproductive you become after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard people talk about context switching. So you're switching from your brain from one task to another. And even though you think it's just hey, it's going to take 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. Well, it actually is going to take you 7 minutes to get back into the frame of the previous task that you were doing. So, I mean, the simple techniques are like, hey, just set a 20-minute timer on your phone, put your phone on do not disturb mode, and just for 20 minutes, crank out that task. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's so many easy things that you can do. With that being said, there's so many excuses not to do any of it. What I found about email in context of my business as a realtor is it was actually coming from a place of pride why I thought that I needed to respond to stuff right away, whether that be a text or an email. As in, I thought I was so important, and I was putting myself in such an elevated place of authority that I'm like, they need this from me right now. And it was actually a prideful thing. I came to realize in my years of business is in people, I thought people had much higher expectations of me than they actually did. And they totally would have been okay if I didn't respond to that and I was present at dinner with my wife and then emailed them back in the morning. They probably would have been more upset if they knew that I wasn't paying attention and being present at home in order to respond to this thing that totally wasn't urgent.
Yeah. I think that what you said right there is actually super valid. And a lot of people, especially as a realtor, I feel like this is really important, or even as a wholesaler too, if I'm with sellers, if you humanize yourself and you say like, hey, listen, I will absolutely get to you. I have dinner plans with my family. I need to do that first. And then I'll get you that information afterwards or tomorrow, whatever. In 2023, most people respect that. And like, not only do they respect that, they like you better because of that. You were less transactional. They're now doing a transaction, they're doing a business related thing with a human being and not just like a machine. And so like, we find that a lot with our sellers too. Motivated sellers, unless they're a crackheads do weird stuff. Right. But if they're like an older person and, you have an appointment or something with them and you're like, oh, I forgot that I have to pick up my kid from soccer practice. If you call them up and you say, hey, Miss Seller, I'm really sorry. I need to push back my appointment by an hour. I need to go pick up my kid from soccer practice. Is that okay? I can almost guarantee you your chances of closing that deal are much higher because you have now shown them that you're a human being and not some giant hedge fund that's just coming trying to ruin the American dream.
And I'll just throw in this, like one of my least favorite things to do is see the social media post from a real estate agent on a Saturday on their boat with them like in their laptop in their lap, and they're like, just grinding for all my clients. It's like, that is disappointing. I'm sorry.
And I understand like there's a little bit of, you have to do that a little bit. It's give and take, especially in the real estate business. And this is what we tell our sales guys too, is the real estate's a blessing and a curse in the way that you can have infinite flexibility with your time, but it is also a reactive business. If a lead calls in, like let's say it's a prospecting lead and they call you at 10 a.m. on a Saturday and you don't answer, they will call somebody else. If it is somebody that you have a relationship with, you don't need to, be there.
Well, you just need to be better at serving them to where you don't feel like you have to be on the clock all the time to serve. And it goes back to a little bit of what you were saying, Taylor, being present. Like you have kids, a spouse, whatever it is, like you're going to feel vastly less guilty or vastly better about the time you spent with those important people that you said you wanted to spend time with if you're not distracted while you're doing it. So an hour with your kids while you're sitting on your phone and not just and really just distracted while you're with them is nowhere near as valuable as an hour with them not on your phone, and to them too, engaging with them. And you get it, your spouse sees that, they feel it. And so like if you're going to say you're spending the time, make it high quality, and then you don't feel guilty and you don't need to be present for everybody at all times.
Yeah. For me, if I told a client that, hey, listen, I'm spending time with my family, I need to get back to you later, and they didn't respect that, then that's just not a client that I want to work with. Right. So, and knowing that every client I'm not the best fit for because I prioritize my family. And that's okay, right? So getting clear on that. And then I think too, Daniel, to your point of spending time and being present at home, a lot of that comes back to just being really good and diligent with the time that you are giving yourself to work during the day. So whether that's through time blocking or whether that's through just having your priority task list for the day and making sure I got to hit these top 3. And if I hit these top 3, when I get home and I'm spending time with my wife and kids, then I can be present because I knew everything that I needed to do in order to move my business forward today. I maybe didn't meet 15 new sellers that all want me to sell their house today. Maybe I had no good phone calls, but I fulfilled my end of the deal, and it was making those calls. So I can go home and be present. The first couple years in my business, just being so all over the place, so reactive, I would work all day long and then get home and not be present because I didn't really do anything dialed in to move my business forward. So once you just kind of get prioritize the things that do matter, those dark green income producing activities, that at least helped me be much more present with my family.
Yeah. And I will say, as someone who's, grown several businesses and is constantly doing this and trying to find this balance, there will always be those times where you have to sort of over encumber yourself, or you have to kind of blow up your calendar. You have to do these things. So it's never going to be perfect, but I think the goal should always be being intentional about figuring out, who to hire, what systems to implement, how to optimize your business at your time to get back to that position where you can be more present. And so I think that's another thing where people hold themselves up as they go, like we've talked about people who are like, I want to invest in real estate. These are my non-negotiables. I do this for my kids every single day. I do this with my spouse every single weekend. That's awesome. Understand that if you do not have some sort of give and take, you are not going to be able to achieve the same results that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it is work-life balance, and if you're not working, you can't talk about work-life balance. You gotta work.
So true.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so for the people that are like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into investing, or like, I want to start a real estate business, but I need to make sure that like I've got my time. I'm like, well, in any industry, any job, any business owner, you're going to have to put in the hours in order to create the momentum quick enough so you're making money quick enough before your bills catch up, so then that you have the opportunity to kind of crank to let off the gas a little bit. So it is necessary, but what I've found as a married person is I needed to just make sure that my wife was on board with the vision for our family, and she was on board with what it was going to take for me to get the ball rolling. And so she was all in. She was supportive. She's my number one support player. So with her on board, it made all of that worth it, and she understood. Where I think it would be really tough if it's like, hey, I want to start my own business, and your spouse, your partner is just not on board, then that would make the time required to get up and running very difficult to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is another question that we get a lot too, at least I do, is how did I get my spouse on board? Because like my sort of journey, I quit my W-2 first and then went into stuff, and kind of like we gave up all of our income when I did that. And everyone always asks, how did you get your spouse? How did you convince your wife to let you do that? And the thing is, if you have to convince your wife, it's not going to be a long-term solution anyway.
Right.
Like, let's be honest. And this is maybe unpopular opinion. If you are somebody, you're, I don't want to say guy, if you're an individual who you feel like your life needs to go a certain way and your spouse is 100% not supportive of that, you probably need to address your marriage.
Probably not good.
It's probably not the ideal marriage for you. And, that's a tough conversation for people. They can be married to someone for 15 years and then like have that realization that sucks. But like, that is the reality of life. You need to look at, is that relationship more important to you, or is your vision that you have for your own life more important for you? And there's no right answer for that. That's a very individualistic sort of thing that you have to address. But I don't think that gets talked about very much, of like, sometimes the marriage might be what's holding you back. And that's an unfortunate situation, but it's true.
Well, people grow and change over time, and priorities, right, and your vision changes over time. And that's why marriage is hard. I believe it's so worth it to work through all of that, and you should do everything you can to fight for it. But being on board with your spouse under the same mission for what you want your family and your life to look like is just an ongoing conversation. And if you're not, those are conversations that you should have before you get married and commit to that.
Right.
That's a great point, actually, because it's like you said, is like people do grow and change and adapt. And if you're not able to have that ongoing conversation with it's not just for your spouse. This is for all the people that are close to you in your life. Like
Mm-hmm.
that may, to Mike's point, be your boat anchor or whatever you want to call it. Like, if you can't adapt and have those conversations, like nobody's going to be successful in that relationship you have with that person, whoever they are in your life. It could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be kids, it could be your wife. Obviously, typically it's your spouse and your kids who you're having to have that ongoing relationship when it comes to what you're going to grow in life and business, because they're the biggest stakeholders. Oh, is that your wedding ring you're throwing off, man? He just threw it off. He's like, I'm done.
Dude,
this conversation's
dude,
eye-opener.
right.
I married up. I would be absolutely screwed if Sarah was like, you know what, it's just not working for me. Then there's no one else. Somehow I swindled her into attaching herself to me, and so.
That's great. That's funny.
Throwing a wedding ring. Yeah, Max, you can leave that in. That was funny.
Yeah,
but all right, awesome. Well, good stuff, guys. We're running up on time here, so let's go into the end of the show. Questions. So first question, what is your craziest real estate investing story? This can be a big win, big loss, crazy tenant, crazy acquisition, whatever you got.
Yeah, I would say, just owning real estate, you run across stuff that's going to cost a lot of money. And that's just the cost of doing business. So bought this apartment unit. There were a lot of long-term tenants in the building. And so when I bought it and I did my walkthrough and did inspections, there's only so much you can inspect when a hoarder is in a unit and there's everything wall to wall to wall. So I had a tenant move out of a basement unit. And after they moved out, the management company that I have was just kind of doing a move out clean, realized there were some soft spots in the bottom of the walls, kind of across all one side. So they started ripping it out and realized, hey, there's water coming in, which Minnesota is a very wet state. It's a basement state as well. I don't know why, but we get wet basements. That's normal. But they started ripping stuff out and then got to a point where they started ripping up the floor and realized that whoever built out that unit literally just put vinyl plank onto dirt. It wasn't, there was no floor. So
That's
what turned into like hey, we're going to have to do some drainage tile, or hey, we just need to do some wall repair, turned into how the heck do we even pour, like, what do we even do here? And so that turned into probably a $25,000 repair on a unit that maybe brings in $800 a month. It's like a little studio. Not awesome return on that money. Was there any way to foresee that? No, because I'm not digging into all the floors in every unit. Yeah. But to me, it's like, hey, if you've got an issue, if something pops up and you've got the finances to solve that issue, it's not really an issue. Just look at it as the cost of doing business.
Yep. Investing
in real estate is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if you own it long enough, you're gonna come out winning in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a crap situation. I think my third or fourth flip that I did by myself, I ran into a similar sort of deal where I had like the basement kept flooding. Like there's had been water damage down there for decades. And the previous owner was like, I don't know, just that's how it is. And like there were tenants in there like, yeah, everything's always ruined. I have no idea. And though finally we just like gutted the whole room and found out that it was basically like dirt and like stacked stone foundation, and all they had done was thrown up some framing and put drywall over the top of it. So there was no moisture barrier.
No vapor barrier. Nothing.
Yeah, no vapor barrier. So it was just stacked rocks, and every time it would rain, the whole thing would just flood.
Oh my gosh.
And it had been like that for probably 50 years. So I was just like, oh God. So I just put vapor barrier, rebuilt the entire downstairs. Yeah.
Wow.
So people do, man. All right. Next question. What is the number one tip you have for either a new investor looking to get started or a small investor looking to take their business to the next level?
I'd say is just find out what your next step is and take action. Put a deadline on it. So we've talked a lot about this on this episode, is all of the things that prevent people from getting started or moving to that next level in their business. And it really just comes down to eliminating the excuse and take action.
Yep.
If you wait to make sure that you've got the perfect script, or you've got the perfect list, or you've got the perfect setup in your office or the perfect dialer software, you're just never going to do it. And so fail and fail fast so you can move past that and start winning.
There you go.
There you go.
Easy. All right. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you if you'd like them to do so?
My biggest platforms would be Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So just my name, Taylor Doolittle. There's not many of us, so you'll be able to find me. And always willing to help anybody in any way I can in the spot that they're at. So total free reign to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, and would be happy to help point you in the right direction, connect you to the right person, encourage you in the right way, slap you in the right way, whatever you need, willing to be helpful if I can.
Mike loves getting slapped the right way.
Whoa. Facebook, Instagram. You're not a TikTok guy? I mean, come on. That's like the new thing now. It's supposed to have all these like 45-year-old, not that you're 45. It's like 45-year-old real estate guys that are like dancing on TikTok pointing to the
I'm viral on TikTok in Bulgaria, but that's it.
That's about it. Very obscure.
At the dancing Doolittle on TikTok. See all his sick moves on there. But
I'm just have not gotten into that, and I absolutely refuse. I absolutely refuse. Like seeing people doing those videos where it's like,
oh God.
It's so cringy to me.
Especially when you see the same one like 57 times, and especially in the realtor world, they all have the same suit that they got from the same store.
They all go to the same social media expert.
Oh God, it's the worst. And I'm like, you all look the same, you know. And they're like, here's things about me. I have 3 kids. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, you're a 45-year-old man. Remember when you used to be really upset when your children were upset with social media? Well, they stopped doing that 10 years ago, and now you're doing it.
Now you're.
Well, I would say, I mean, that I think applies perfectly to what we talked about, where it's like track your time during the week. How much time did you spend doing those things, and what kind of return did you get on the tasks that you did? And I guarantee you that 98% of the people that I use TikTok a lot, they spend way too much time watching other people's TikToks and not just creating content, and they're not seeing a return from it. But you're doing something so it makes you feel like you're doing business.
Hey,
and you're not.
They got 7 likes. That's all that matters.
Well, that's probably TikTok might not be the honey hole yet for people buying houses or selling houses. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but
probably not be. But anyways, all right, good full circle there. Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Taylor, man. We really appreciate your time. And seriously, guys, reach out to Taylor. He'd love to help you figure out the next phase of your business, and probably help you figure out how to balance your life and time block everything in there as well. And I assume too, if people are in the Minnesota area, they could probably reach out to you as well if they want to buy properties, sell properties, things like that.
Yeah, buy property, sell property, drink coffee, whatever. Come, let's hang.
Perfect. Right on. So cool. We'll reach out to Taylor, guys. He has a lot of good info for you. And besides that, please share this episode with anyone else who might find it interesting. Anyone who's interested in real estate, business, investing, or just wants to know how to be more productive with their life. This is a great episode for them. And if you could also leave us a 5-star review. And I don't think anything else to talk about right now. So cool. Thanks for listening, guys. And we'll talk to you all next week.